I didn't know her name when she knocked, just that she was drenched, shaking, and alone. But what stuck with me, what still makes the hair on my arms rise, was how she looked over her shoulder before stepping inside, like someone or something was following her. That night wasn't supposed to change my life, but it did. It was just after 10 p.m. when the storm rolled in, loud, angry thunder booming across the sky like warning shots. The kind of night where even the stray dogs huddle under rusted dumpsters, and the only sounds are wind, rain, and regrets. I had just put my son Ben to sleep, his wheezy breath softened by the hum of the old air purifier I'd rigged together with duct tape and leftover parts from a busted leaf blower. Money was tight, too tight, but he needed that machine to breathe, and I needed him to be okay. If you've ever been the kind of parent who's counted quarters to afford a can of soup, then you already know what I mean. And if you believe that even people with nothing can still offer kindness, then go ahead and hit that like or subscribe button. Because what happened next? It proved that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can ripple out into something bigger than any of us can imagine. I was sipping instant coffee that tasted like burnt water and staring at my cracked phone screen, trying to make the math work. Again, when the knock came. One knock, then two, then silence. Not the heavy-handed pounding of someone angry or official, more like a question wrapped in fear. My first instinct was to ignore it. Out here on the edge of the trailer park, no one comes knocking unless they want something, and I didn't have anything left to give. But something pulled me up. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe it was that weird flicker in my chest that said not tonight. I opened the door. She stood there, soaked from head to toe, hoodie clinging to her frame, mascara, or maybe just rain, running down her cheeks. No suitcase, no backpack, just a cracked phone in one hand and eyes that looked too old for her face. Maybe 17, maybe 18, but those eyes, they'd seen too much. Can I just sit inside for a minute? She asked. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed, but I could see her hands trembling. I looked past her into the night. The streetlights flickered like ghosts. No car in sight, just the storm. I thought about Ben, asleep in the next room, his lungs as fragile as wet paper. I thought about the bills stacked on the kitchen counter. I thought about saying no. Just for a minute, I said, stepping aside. Shoes off, please. She slipped inside quietly, leaving muddy footprints on the mat. She stood near the door, like a stray that wasn't sure if it was welcome. I offered her a towel and gestured toward the old recliner. She sat stiffly, clutching the towel like armor. You from around here? I asked. No, she said quickly. Just passing through. I nodded, not pressing. People who are running never volunteer the real reason. I'm Jake, I said. My son's sleeping, so if you need to make a call or just wait out the rain, that's fine. But nothing shady. I got a kid here. She met my eyes then, something flickering behind hers. Guilt maybe. Or gratitude. I'm Liv. Liv. No last name. No details. I didn't push. She looked like a girl who'd bolt at the first sign of pressure. Instead, I poured her a cup of coffee, the same burnt water mix I'd been nursing. She took it with both hands, like it was gold. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the storm hissing against the tin roof. I kept one eye on her and one ear tuned to Ben's soft, mechanical breathing. She didn't fidget, didn't scroll her phone, just stared into her cup like she was somewhere else entirely. Then she said, You live here alone? I nodded. Just me and my son, since his mom passed. She looked down at her lap. Sorry, I didn't tell her she didn't need to be. I didn't tell her about the hospital bills, the nights I'd cried so hard I couldn't breathe, or the way grief becomes something you wear like an old jacket. Instead, I just said, Thanks. Ben, she said, like she was testing the name. How old is he? 7, I said. Smart as hell. Asthma's been rough this year, though. Can't afford the good meds. She nodded slowly, like she understood more than she should. And maybe she did. I met a lot of people in this life who talk like they had it all figured out. But Liv, she wore pain like an accessory. It clung to her in the spaces between words. Lightning lit up the room for a second, and for just a flash, I saw something in her expression I didn't expect. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. The kind of look someone gets when they're not just cold or tired, but hunted. You got someone I should be calling? I asked, a little firmer now. She looked up, jaw tight. No, I'm not in trouble, or anything. I just needed somewhere dry. I didn't believe her. Not entirely. But I also didn't see bruises. Didn't see track marks. Just a scared kid trying to stay upright. All right, I said. You can crash on the couch. I'll grab a blanket. She nodded, and for the first time, she looked more like a teenager than a ghost. Later that night, after I'd given her the blanket and double-locked the door, I lay in bed next to Ben and listened. She didn't make a sound. Not one creak. Not one footstep. Just silence. And that's when something strange hit me. Most kids in trouble, runaways, addicts, girls on the edge, they can't sit still. They tap, pace, whisper, scroll. But Liv? She was still. Too still. And that's when I wondered, what kind of girl hides from the world so well you almost forget she's there? I didn't know who she was. I didn't know where she came from. But I had a feeling this wasn't going to end the way I thought. By the time I woke up, the rain had stopped, but the sky outside the trailer still wore that bruised purple color that comes right after a storm, like the world was holding its breath. Ben was already up, humming to himself while he carefully arranged his Hot Wheels in a line across the faded linoleum. I glanced toward the couch, half expecting it to be empty, figuring Liv would have slipped out sometime before sunrise. But she was still there, curled up tight under the blanket, hoodie pulled halfway over her face, one arm cradling her phone like it held her last lifeline. Her chest rose and fell in slow, measured breaths, the kind of sleep that only comes after running too long and finally stopping. For a second, I just stood there, wondering how someone so young could sleep like someone who'd been chased by ghosts. I started a pot of coffee, the cheap kind that always tasted like regret, and fried the last 2 eggs in the fridge, one for Ben, one split between me and our mystery guest. I'd have to skip lunch, but that wasn't new. Liv stirred just as I set the eggs on the table. Her eyes blinked open with that flash of panic again, like waking up somewhere unfamiliar triggered her survival mode before her brain could catch up. "It's just us," I said, keeping my voice low so I didn't startle her. "You're safe." She sat up slowly, brushing her hair back and taking stock of the room like a soldier emerging from a trench. Her voice was groggy. "What time is it?" "Little after 8. She nodded and looked down at her phone. The screen was cracked in 3 places, and I noticed she didn't turn it on. Probably dead. Or maybe she didn't want it on. That told me more than anything. "I made eggs," I added. "You don't have to stay, but I figure you could use a hot meal." She hesitated, then joined us at the table. Ben lit up when he saw her. "Hi again," he chirped, clearly thrilled she hadn't vanished. "Want to see my track?" Liv smiled. Not one of those forced, polite ones either. A real smile. Tired, but genuine. "Yeah, I'd love to." He launched into a demonstration while she ate, slowly, like her body was still deciding if it could trust the food. I watched her while I sipped my coffee. She was calm now, but every now and then, her eyes flicked toward the window or the front door like she was expecting someone to come tearing through it. "Is someone looking for you?" I finally asked, keeping my tone neutral. She froze for half a beat, then slowly put down her fork. "No. Too fast." "You sure?" She glanced at Ben, then back at me. "I'm not in danger. I just didn't want to go home last night." "It's complicated." I didn't push. People lie when they're scared. People lie when they're cornered. But her lie didn't feel malicious. It felt like protection. After breakfast, she helped Ben clean up the toy cars without me asking. Then she folded the blanket and offered to wash the dish she used. That's not runaway behavior. That's raised right behavior. I watched her wipe the counter like she was trying to earn her stay, and it hit me. This girl wasn't used to being invisible. She was used to being watched. "Can I charge my phone?" she asked after a long pause. "Just for a bit." "Sure," I said, handing her the charger I kept taped to the side of the kitchen cabinet. She plugged it in and stared at the blank screen like it might explode when it lit up. When it finally buzzed to life, I saw the lock screen flash, just for a second. Not a selfie, not a picture of friends, just an abstract, high-resolution image. The kind of wallpaper that came preloaded on expensive phones. The notification bar lit up instantly, dozens of texts. I only saw the first 2 words before she tilted the screen away. "Where are you?" "Urgent. Call me." She quickly turned it off again. No reply. No scrolling. Just silence. Then, she looked up at me, and her expression changed. "You've been kind to me. You didn't have to be." I shrugged. "Didn't seem right to send you back out into that storm." She nodded. "Still, thank you." She stood then, like she was about to say goodbye, but stopped at the door. She hesitated with her hand on the knob. I could see the war in her, something pulling her to go, something else begging her to stay just a little longer. Then she turned and asked, "Do you know where the nearest bus station is?" "About 12 miles that way," I said, pointing out toward Route 19. "But you're not going to get far without cash or ID." She blinked. That told me everything I needed to know. "I'm not trying to get in your business, Liv," I added. "But if you're running from something dangerous, you don't have to do it alone." "I'm not," she said, a little too quickly. Then, quieter, "Not dangerous, just stifling." That's when Ben ran back into the room, clutching his inhaler. "Daddy, I feel tight again." His breathing was shallow, and I could hear the rasp before he even spoke. I knelt down and helped him with the inhaler, watching his chest rise and fall like a bellows. Liv watched too, her eyes wide, filled with something I couldn't quite place. Pity? Maybe. But more than that. "Does that happen a lot?" she asked gently once Ben was calm again. "More than I'd like." "And the insurance?" "Is a joke," I said. "We make too much for Medicaid. Not enough for anything that matters." She was quiet for a second. Then she looked me in the eye and said something that stuck with me long after she left that morning. "My mom could fix that." I blinked. "Your mom?" Liv nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I'd have to go home first." She left a few minutes later with nothing but her cracked phone and a new hoodie I gave her from Ben's closet. One that was way too big, but better than wet clothes. I figured I wouldn't see her again. That she'd vanish the way people like her always do when they're on the run. But that night, as I watched Ben sleep, I kept thinking about that look in her eyes when she said it. Not a brag, not a flex, a fact. My mom could fix that. I didn't know who she really was. Not yet, but I had a feeling I'd find out soon. I didn't think I'd see her again. Girls like that, who show up out of nowhere and vanish into the night, they don't usually circle back. But 3 days later, just as I was fixing the busted porch step, a black SUV pulled up in front of the trailer. Polished, quiet, expensive. Liv stepped out first. No hoodie this time. Clean jeans, sleek jacket, and posture that didn't belong to a runaway. Her face lit up when she saw me. Relieved, maybe, or braver. Then the driver's door opened, and a woman I recognized from TV and business magazines, Serena Blake, stepped out beside her. "Mr. Williams," she said. "I'm Liv's mother." I didn't say a word, just nodded slowly as my brain caught up. Liv glanced at me, eyes soft. I told her everything. Serena approached with grace but humility. "My daughter came here with nothing. You gave her shelter, food, respect, things I didn't even know she was missing. I'd like to thank you." "I wasn't expecting anything," I replied. "That's why you deserve it," she said. She asked about Ben, his condition, his treatment. I told her the truth: tight finances, ration meds, insurance gaps. She didn't flinch. "I want to help," she said. Not out of guilt, out of gratitude. It was hard to accept. I'd spent so long surviving, refusing handouts, holding my pride like a shield. But I looked at Ben's empty inhaler canister on the porch table, and I let the shield down. Before they left, Liv hugged me. Tight, real. "Thank you," she whispered. I watched their SUV disappear down the road, tires humming over the wet asphalt. Ben wandered up beside me. "Was that Liv again?" "Yeah," I said. "Are we rich now?" I smiled faintly. "No, buddy. But I think we're gonna be okay."